There are people who don't need miracles to survive, only the belief that it's not yet time to fall. They walk through cold rains with no shelter, through endless nights where darkness is their only companion. Yet within their hearts burns a small flame, fragile but never extinguished. Because sometimes the only thing that keeps us alive isn't breath, but the will to not surrender, the quiet faith that no matter how many times life knocks us down, we can still rise again, even with bare hands. And when the world seems to want nothing more than to see you on your knees, what will you choose? To give in or to rise and rewrite the story of your own life? Bruce Lee once said, "Do not pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." A quote that seems simple, yet carries a profound philosophy of survival. He didn't teach people to avoid pain, but to face it and to walk through it. For only through hardship do we discover how strong we truly are, and that sometimes the greatest strength isn't defeating someone else, but not letting fear defeat yourself. In the middle of a vast ocean, a man drifted on a small raft, the sky blazing above him and death lurking behind every breath. He had nothing but a broken body, a few drops of water left, and a vow in his heart: "I will not die here." Then, when captured by the enemy and subjected to torture and humiliation, he still refused to bow, because surrendering meant losing his soul. In that man-made hell, many prayed for it all to end. But he prayed only for the strength to endure. The light slowly fades. The narrator's voice drops, calm, low, and deliberate. And perhaps no one understood those words better than a man who had faced death more than once. The sound of crashing waves emerges. Wind howls, wood creaks softly. The roar of engines tore through a sky thick with gunpowder. The reconnaissance plane shook violently, its nose diving like a wounded bird amid a sea of fire. "We've been hit." A scream burst through the headset, then everything vanished in an explosion. A propeller shattered. Flames swallowed the cockpit. In that moment between life and death, he thought of the one thing he hadn't done: to truly live. Then the world shattered. When he opened his eyes, he found himself drifting on the ocean, surrounded by the bleeding wreckage and two fellow airmen. The sky wasn't blue. It hung above him like a heavy curtain of silence. The sea stretched endlessly, and dawn was nothing but a red streak of blood mixed with salt water. 3 days of rations, 1 bottle of water, and the fins of sharks circling patiently, like time itself. On the 5th day, the first man died. Alex, the only one still conscious, gently pushed the body away, watching the blood bloom in the waves. The shark struck, tearing it apart in seconds. There was no room for tears, only breath, and a will harder than steel. He lifted his head and screamed into the vast ocean. "God, if you can still hear me, don't make it easy. Just give me the strength to endure." That prayer would become his fate. On the 27th day, he was found not by allies, but by enemies. Bound and blindfolded, he was thrown onto a heavy steel ship. His fight for survival entered its second hell, the prison camp. There, people didn't die from beatings. They died from despair. The warden, known only as the Bird, didn't kill anyone. He broke their souls. Every morning, he forced prisoners to kneel, to scream insults at themselves, to beat one another until blood covered their hands. The man who had survived the ocean stayed silent. No crying, no begging, no bowing. When the whip struck his back, he stared straight into the eyes of his torturer. When the gun pressed against his forehead and the voice sneered, "Who do you think you are to defy me?" he answered softly, "I'm not defying you. I just refuse to die on my knees." In that instant, something shifted. The tormentor's gaze trembled. Deep down, he realized there was something in this man he could never touch, a strength without form, without name, unbreakable. From that day, the beatings grew harsher, but also more meaningless. He was no longer a victim. He had become a mirror reflecting the weakness of the man holding the whip. Winter came. The cold cut like blades. The rice was half cooked. Prisoners hauled coal, carried wood, shoveled snow barefoot. Death breathed down their necks. One morning, the bird threw a heavy iron beam, more than 20 kilograms, and growled, "If you're as strong as you think, lift it above your head. If you drop it, I'll shoot." He bent down, gripped the freezing metal, and began to lift. The whole camp held its breath. Sweat and blood streamed down his arms. Every second was a battle between a broken body and a burning soul. 1 minute, 2, 3. "Drop it," the warden roared. He didn't. He stared back. 10 minutes, 15. His body shook violently, but his eyes still burned, a flame in the snow. Then the warden screamed, threw down his whip, and stormed away. For the first time, the silence in the camp wasn't fear. It was respect. A man had stood tall in hell. The war ended. He returned home. His body was half its former weight, but his eyes were deeper, brighter, calmer. When people asked, "Do you hate the man who tortured you?" he smiled and shook his head. "If I let hatred guide me, I'd still be in that camp. I never prayed for an easy life, only for the strength to live and to forgive." Years later, beneath the blazing Olympic torches, he ran with the flame in his hand. The light reflected on the scars of his face, unhidden, unashamed. Every step was a declaration. "They can break my body, but they cannot break my spirit." As the torch flared bright, he closed his eyes. Inside, there was only a breath as soft as the wind. I have lived. Not an easy life, but one unbowed. True strength doesn't come from muscle. It comes from an unyielding will against adversity. That man didn't seek an easy life. He sought a reason to keep breathing, even when everything tried to suffocate him. Only when we dare to endure the fiercest storms do we truly understand what it means to be unbroken. If you were in his place, broken, humiliated, and pushed to the edge, what would you do? Would you give up? Or clench your teeth and rise again, just to prove that you're still alive? What was the moment you realized you were stronger than you ever thought? Was it after a fall, a loss, or simply the day you decided not to give up? Share your story in the comments below, because maybe your words could give strength to someone who needs it today. And if stories like this speak to your heart, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification so we can keep walking together on this journey of faith, resilience, and healing, one story at a time.